This is Sunday Skate on WEI.
Yeah, I mean, 3 shifts in a row, we got scored again, so just a loss of concentration, and what can happen in this league. The game can get away from you very quick, and we've seen it tonight. 3 shifts were a little sloppy and made some mistakes, and they capitalized on, obviously, 3-goal lead in the third. It's I don't think they're gonna come back many times.
Welcome into Sunday Skate, the final Sunday Skate of the season as the Bruins wind down with 2 games left in a lost season where the biggest talking point now is just what pick they end up with, where they are heading into the draft lottery, how they approach this offseason. You just heard from David Pastrnak after another tough night Thursday for the Bruins, a loss to the Chicago Blackhawks, one of the few teams below them in the standings. It was also a tough night for my BU Terriers in the national championship game, losing 6-2 to Western Michigan. Just lost to the better team. Western Michigan just outplayed them. Just deeper, more relentless, more structured, I thought. And, some of BU's stars, I think, ran into a defense that is better than what they're used to facing and couldn't break through. So we can talk about that. We'll talk plenty of Bruins.
I'm surprised you're leaving that as a topic we can talk about.
I debated
I thought you were just going to be like, no, nothing happened last night. It was just a regular Saturday night. And
for 10 years, I've been pretending the 2015 national title game didn't happen.
Yes. I thought that's what we were going to get today, too.
I think I'm going to try a different approach, a different way to grieve. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
acceptance is probably a good
skip
way.
right to acceptance. That's right. Yeah, I'm 10 years older now.
Well, you were in college in 2009, right, when they won?
Yeah, I was there as a sophomore.
The last time that BU won.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I still have that memory, It's been 16 years now. I think we're ready for another one, but maybe next year.
Yep.
Well, it's been impressive. They get there every year.
Yeah.
Better than some of the other teams.
Yeah, three straight Frozen Fours in 3 years with Jay Pandolfo in charge. So that's the positive. Now, BU like BC looking to break through. Like BC got there last year, lost to Denver in the championship game. So hockey's powerhouses are, just the last 2 years coming up a bit short.
The NCHC. I mean, that's the classic
it's
conversation
crazy
about how the NCHC, like Hockey East, are they better than the NCHC? And they go back and forth, and it's like, well, the NCHC has won a lot of titles recently. So
yeah, I think, 7 of the last 9 now?
Yeah, UMass is the only one that from Hockey East in that stretch. So
yeah, and Quinnipiac from ECAC.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Big Ten hasn't won any, much to their chagrin.
Yep. No, it's tough, but I mean, both conferences are so strong, and BU, the fact that they even were able to make a deep run in the tournament after the slow start that they had, I think was a proof of a great coaching job by Jay Pandolfo this season. Especially, I know they had talent, but to try to get guys to buy in defensively was a big struggle in the beginning of the season, and they started to do that. Their penalty kill got better. I don't know. And Mikhail Yegorov, obviously, big difference. And Razor, you would probably know this better. They bring in Yegorov in the second semester. Karan pretty much sees no ice time after that point. I think he played in one other game after that. What kind of a difference did Yegorov make for BU this year?
Well, a lot, obviously. But they knew they needed to get better in a lot of different areas. I mean, they were taking a major penalty every single game in the first half of the season. And so I think it was a kind of a perfect storm for Yegorov in that he came in at a perfect time where they had already kind of had their struggles. They've already had their issues that they knew they had to get better at. He was a catalyst for that. And then on top of it, you talk about Pando and what he's done really well, what Kim Brandvold, what Joey Pereira have done really well is develop it. And these one-and-done kids, these first-round picks, they've got them good over 6-7 months. Whatever they've been able to get to them. They've been able to get the culture into them after the holiday break. That first half, a lot of learning, a lot of young kids, a lot of mistakes, and then they've dialed it in as the season's gone on. I think that's what they've done best, and they've done that consistently now over the last 3 years.
Yeah, I'd say all 3 seasons Pandolfo's been there, they have not started the season the way they would like. Now, I'm sure one of these years he'd love to just get off to a 9-0 start and rip out of the gates. But you're right, he has coached them up as the season's gone on and generally gotten them playing their best hockey towards the end.
He has to be someone who the Bruins are talking to in this offseason. Like, he has to be on the
I'm sure
interview
they'll
list.
make a call.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I
at
think
the very least, even if he turns it down, you have to knock on that door.
Yeah, I think Pandolfo's going to want to stay at BU. His son is a couple years away from probably going there. His son and both of his line mates from Rivers are heading out to the U.S. development program for the U17 team. Freddie Meyer's son also among that group, another BU alum. So I get the sense that Pandolfo's probably going to want to stick around a bit longer at BU, but
yeah, he's not jumping.
Yeah.
No chance.
If the Bruins really wanted him, you can try to just keep throwing more money and see if that does it, but the Bruins will have other options too. So we'll see, but no doubt like his name will, people are going to throw it out there.
Yeah, and I said this before on the Skate podcast, but Nate Lehman's another guy who has come up in those conversations, and he's another guy whose son is going to come up through PC pretty soon. So, that's probably another guy that stays put in college hockey as well.
Yeah, and the other big name in college hockey is David Carlo to Denver. Again, another guy that I don't see jumping unless the money's just crazy and it's like there's no way you can turn it down. But, yeah, I mean, look, that leads us into as good a Bruins discussion as any, which is, like, where does this team look for its next coach? Because Don Sweeney was on Nesson during the second period of Thursday's game and was asked about the coaching search and what he's going to be looking for in the next full-time head coach. Obviously, Joe Sacco still is the interim tag, and Sweeney was complimentary of Sacco and the job that he's done trying to get this team through the season, pointed out that he's essentially coached 2 different teams, pre-trade deadline and post-trade deadline. So, look, they'll talk to Sacco. Like, he'll be considered. Personally, I'd be surprised if it ends up being Sacco as full-time head coach. But, how wide of a net do they cast? Do they look for someone who has ties to the organization in one way or the other? Or is this the time to go completely outside the organization and try something new for them?
I have no sense. I typically you get a feel, you hear things, you talk to people. I have none of that. I haven't heard one name that has been actually discussed or one name that's just been consistently over and over again. I don't know. I knowing kind of the cadence here. Usually it's in-house. Typically, it's in-house.
Don't you get the sense though that they don't want to do that this time? I feel like that's.
I don't know. That's what I'm just saying. I don't know.
Last time they didn't. Jim Montgomery did not have ties to the organization.
He didn't, and he's yeah. So yeah. I don't know. No idea.
Do you think too?
I literally have no idea.
The sense that, or not the sense that I get, but just what keeps coming to my mind is that maybe they're waiting to see who else gets fired at the end of the season, and that their guy is actually currently employed by someone else. And
I mean, nothing's going to happen. You have to wait till dominoes fall. You have to wait till. I mean, of course, you don't make that decision now. You don't make that decision till. This probably isn't going to happen till the end of May, middle of May. I don't know when Monty got hired last time, but that was still kind of up in the air. And again, you're right. Joe Sacco is a piece of this as well. It does. Is he where does he shake out? Does he deserve to be completely fired because of what happened after the trade deadline? he would have been, he was doing a really good job for Jim Montgomery. He's done a really good job for Bruce Cassidy and what he's done in this situation. So where does he fit into this piece? Does he allow you to get a younger coach, a less experienced coach, if he's here and can kind of navigate some of those things for another guy? But again, I think it is truly speculation. I guess that's the best way to put it. It'll be truly speculation until 3 or 4 guys get fired, the first round gets finished, everything shakes out, both in the AHL for that matter. Again, I've been talking about the Providence Bruins, and everybody likes to use the Washington Capitals because they're the soup of the day. And Spencer Carberry was an AHL guy, won a Calder Cup. I know he went and coached somewhere else for an assistant, but he came back to the organization. If the P Bruins go on a long run, does that open up options as well? So, yeah, it's truly speculation. I don't think anyone, again, I gather no one really has a sense of what their plan is or what they're going to do, and it will be another huge story for all of us here to talk about in Boston.
Yeah, the Jim Montgomery hire was June 30th, by the way. So that was draft time, like days before free agency, or the day before free agency, I think. But I do remember at the time that was considered late. Like people thought that process had dragged on a bit, and had even wondered, had the Bruins kind of missed a window, missed out on guys. And I don't think they did ultimately. Like I never heard anything of like they wanted so-and-so instead and missed out on him. Like I think for whatever reason it was just a process that dragged on for them, and maybe they knew Montgomery was going to be there, so they didn't have to rush. But either way, yeah, you're probably, I would not expect this to be something where like 2 weeks after the season the Bruins announce their next head coach. I mean, maybe if that guy's already out there and they know exactly who it is, but yeah, most likely you're looking at a month or two of this process. So, Razor, you mentioned Spencer Carberry and kind of that mold of a guy who had AHL success, then went to Toronto as an assistant coach. The Bruins reportedly interviewed him last time around. That was a year before Washington ended up hiring him. So we know they've looked at that path or that kind of guy who hasn't been an NHL head coach. I'm assuming there's going to be guys who kind of fit that mold of, who's the next AHL head coach who's going to make the jump, because they're probably going to be looking at that guy. And even in-house, Jay Leach fits that mold. And as a guy who had success in Providence, went out to Seattle as an assistant coach in the NHL, and now came back to Boston for 1 year here as an assistant coach, which maybe complicates it a bit, where you're like, okay, well, this season went so poorly. Again, do you want to just completely rip the Band-Aid off from this year and go in a different direction? Or is Jay Leach still someone that they think very highly of in-house?
And this is another one of those situations that the Bruins have done a really good job at this. To go from Claude to Bruce to Jim, hiring through the process, whatever their process is in hiring these guys, they've done a fantastic job. Again, I hear the criticism, he's fired 3. Well, he's also hired these 3 guys too. He's found them. And you talk about Spencer Carberry coming in for an interview. Like, he would have worked out too if they took him. So they have a good sense. They have conviction in what they like and what they want. Again, everything is speculation at this point, but you have to. They're going to get the benefit of the doubt with whoever they hire, with the way they've made decisions in the past on very, very good coaches.
I feel like we can rule out John Tortorella.
Yeah,
probably.
I think that one is probably not
going
to happen, especially with the comments about not wanting to be involved in a rebuild. And, that's going to be part of what the next coach has to do, is take the next steps with the roster that they put together next year and probably deal with a lot of younger guys. And Tortorella specifically said he doesn't want to do that. So, and I don't know if his personality is what they'd be looking for either. So I think we can rule him out.
Yeah, and I would rule out Tortorella, but that is like another path you can look at, is the guy who's been around and had success and won a lot of games in the NHL. Like, I've mentioned, if not here, then on other shows I've been on, like if Pittsburgh lets Mike Sullivan go, I mean, there's a local guy with family here and family on the team, and Charlie McAvoy as his son-in-law. Like,
and I've mentioned Peter Laviolette too.
Peter Laviolette,
Rangers,
very likely out with the Rangers based on all reports. So yeah, like now, do those guys want to come here if they think this is, if they think this retool or rebuild might drag on a bit? Like, they might not want to be a part of that either. Or do they think it can happen quickly? So it's going to be a fascinating search because there's so many different ways that it could go, because it's been a long time since the Bruins were here and looking for a coach in this situation. They were always looking for the coach who, all right, we're building up, we're trying to win a Stanley Cup. Who's the coach who helps us get there? Like, that's one process. Now how do we just get back to the playoffs? Like, how do we start building this next core that hopefully somewhere down the line gets us to a Stanley Cup? But this is a different process than where they've been before. Like, the most similar would be Cassidy, because that was a younger team at the time that was just trying to squeak into the playoffs. But, it's...
And again,
they're in a different spot, and the job looks different to coaches, too, than it has in the past.
Well, and again, if you think they're in a similar position to where they were with Cassidy, then you look to Ryan Mongeau.
Mougenel.
Mougenel. You look to Mougenel. That's what Bruce Cassidy was.
Yeah.
He knew all the guys that were up here. He knew the younger guys. He had a sense. So if Mougenel and the Providence Bruins can go to the finals this summer, that changes the narrative. That changes where his standing is. He's going to get an interview, and again, that's you kind of again. You have to look at history. You have to look at tendencies, and that's the tendency. If he continue, if they go on a run, if they do believe, that's where they're going to go. That's what they like to do.
Yeah, and think about if it's a young roster of some of the guys we've been seeing over the last few weeks, like Fabian Lysell, like Riley Durant, who just got called up, like Fraser Mitten, like those guys that he's had a little bit more time to work with because he's been down in Providence with them, especially Lysell. He's seen for a while now, and he's somebody that has probably a decent assessment on what they need to still work on and what kind of player they can be. So there certainly would be benefit to knowing what you have in your system there.
Yeah, and the players who come up under Ryan Mougenel love him. Like, all speak very highly of him. On or off the record, I've not heard a bad word from a player, and like that is similar to some things like that group that came up under Cassidy. Like those guys really liked and respected him. Okay, we got to catch our first break here, but that's on the table as a topic, Bruins coaching search. We will get into roster and what that's going to look like in the offseason and how the Bruins build that. We can do draft. We have
got to get some goalie questions for Razor.
We have a long text about college hockey, which we'll touch on. All on the table. Give us a call or text 617-779-7937. We'll be back with more Sunday Skate after David Azer has you trending.
Riley Durant made his NHL debut tonight. You have a lot of young guys on the ice now. As you look towards the future, how important are these experiences for them?
I thought that was, probably looking wise offensive zone time best line that Minty and Riley and Kusi. I thought they played really well together. They had a lot of ozone possession, midnight plays. Minty had a half breakaway, So I thought that they were our best line. They were fun to watch. So overall, you can see a couple guys getting more comfortable, with a couple games in here. So it's fun to see, and we're really impressed with David Minty's line.
Welcome back to Sunday Skate. Scott McLaughlin here with Andrew Razor Raycroft and Bridget Prue. David Azer producing behind the glass. So you heard Pasternak there talking about the Bruins' de facto third line of Riley Durant making his NHL debut Thursday night. Woburn kid, Providence College product.
Missing his front tooth. Looks like a hockey player.
Already down a tooth coming up. He was on a line with Fraser Minton, who we've now seen for a few games. Minty. And Murat Husnudinov, who...
Kuzi.
I think we're still working through some nicknames on Husnudinov. You hear Kuzi, Kusti. Like,
Pasta called him Kuzi.
I thought he threw the T
Which,
in there.
ironically, you don't pronounce the K in his name, so, either way, it's not the best, but...
Kuzi worked. Like, Kuzi's a good nickname. Just go with that. But yeah, that does take us to a discussion, though, about, the youth and what this team looks like, because a big part of this offseason is going to be determining how many young guys do you have who either are ready to make an impact, or I'm not even going to say make an impact. How many young guys are ready to play on this team out of camp next season? How many are parts of what you're building for the future? And how many are just kind of tweeners or depth guys and you can't really count on to be core pieces? Because that is going to, in part, determine like how active you have to be in free agency and trades. Are you filling 8 spots up front or 4 and you're leaving some open for kids? Like, realistically, we know there's going to be some open spots because you can't go out and add 8 legitimate NHL players. But what that looks like is so fascinating because I think we see some positives from all these young guys at times, and then you see inconsistency. And, to me, like, up front at least, like, I don't know if you can really count on any of these guys to, like, make this team out of camp and be ready to contribute out of the gate next season. But I don't know. Am I being too negative there?
Not at all. Not at all. They have a lot is going to happen here from now to September. It's just I wouldn't read anything into anything that's going on right now. Riley Duran coming up. That's great. It's a great story. He gets to play his first game on home ice. But would he be playing? Would he have gotten called up if the Bruins needed one player and were 2 points out of the playoffs right now? Probably not, right? Like this is garbage time. This is the ultimate garbage time of the National Hockey League season, where you throw guys bones that have had good seasons. You throw bones to guys that are home around this area. You do all these nice things for everybody, but it's completely sentimental, or it's completely experimental in just throwing things against the wall because nothing, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter at all. So, again, go back to the playoffs down there for those guys. They have a huge opportunity to go on a run and really prove and really get better and develop over the next couple of months and put seeds into players, into coaches' heads. But, again, we've talked so much. This team isn't going to the bottom, which means they're not going to have 6 rookies in their, up front. They're not going to have a whole line of rookies for that matter. They have $25-30 million of cap space. Like, all of that's got to get spent. You've got to bring guys in. Realistically, these 4, 5, 6 guys are fighting for 1 spot, maybe 2 at the end of the day up front, because that's just the nature of the NHL. Whatever coach you're bringing in here, even if it's the guy from the minors, he's not. You don't want to start a season that you're expected to win. That you have Charlie McAvoy, they had David Pastrnak. That you got to get out of the gates with 5 rookies. It's just so not all these guys are going to play. Most of them probably aren't even going to have NHL careers at the end of the day. It's harsh and not, but that's the reality of it. It truly is. So I'm glad these guys are getting a chance. I'm glad they're getting their games, but I wouldn't read too much into it.
And what you're saying is basically Don Sweeney, Cam Neely have a lot of groundwork to do to try to fill in those spots from outside the system, the current system, and the current guys that they're getting a look at right now.
They got tons. I mean, and again, they knew that when they traded away Frederick, Carlo, Coyle, Marchand. Those are 4. Like, you don't take out 4 of those guys, National Hockey Leaguers, like real NHLers, and then just put 4 rookies in those places and think you're going to win. Like, that's not, it doesn't work like that. So yeah, they know they need to bring a ton of guys in.
Yeah, let's go to the phones here. We got Jerry in Arlington with some thoughts on the rebuild. What's up, Jerry?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I'm glad to be on, and I just had a question in moving forward with the amount of draft picks that we do have. I mean, obviously, Sweeney and Neely going to be able to, make qualified picks, because I look in the past and we have guys like Wiesel and Merkelov, who, Merkelov's up for a trial Wiesel's up for a trial right now. We see what he can do. And then not only the confidence in making those picks, the development of the young talent, is that missing in the system, or is it just a matter that we haven't had a lot of draft picks in recent years because of trades and such? So that was pretty much my question. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jerry. Yeah, so it's twofold, right? Because the Bruins haven't had a lot of high first-round picks. Haven't really had any since, if you want to call it, Charlie McAvoy was a top 15 pick, so that probably qualifies as high. They haven't picked in the top 10 since Dougie Hamilton. That was 2011. That was 14 years ago. It's that is where you get impact players. That is where you have actual high percentage of hitting on players. Late first-round picks are, it's a total crapshoot. It really is. Go pick out any draft and look at the picks in the 20s and tell me how many impact NHLers there were. In a good year, it might be 4 out of 10 that go in the 20s. Normally, it's probably 2. It's a low percentage. And then, forget about second round and beyond. I think people certainly the NHL draft is more like the NBA draft in that sense, where there's really only a small group of impact players, and then you're kind of just hoping. It's not the NFL, where even if you pick a guy 25th, you expect him to come in and contribute quickly. You expect him to be a starter for years to come. It's just not like that. So the Bruins haven't had those high picks where you can actually, land impact talent. Now they're going to have one this year, and you have to hit on that guy. But beyond that, so the next question there is there a development issue? Should Fabian Lysell be better than he is right now and more impactful? Did they not develop him correctly? Do they not know how to develop, a quote unquote skilled player? That's also been a debate.
Yeah, it has. Yes, and it's funny. I was just hearing on the radio. It just happened that they were going through draft efficiency over the years, and at Bruins were on. So I sat in the car for 2 extra minutes to listen, because I knew this was going to come up. And the samples, over the 10 years, they've had 19 second and third round picks. 9 of them have been NHLers. They're 11th in draft. Whatever the metric was, I didn't hear the start of it, so I don't know exactly what all the pieces and the context of it was. But they're not. I know people like to think that they're 32nd in drafting. They're actually pretty good drafters. And you go through the second and third round picks that they've got, the late first round picks, and if they play 200 games, if you pick a kid 29th overall and he plays 200 games, that's an amazing draft pick. I know you said it right, Scott, in that it's not the NFL draft, and I think so many people, if you're somewhat casual to it, just assume that everybody who gets drafted to the NHL just plays. It's automatic you're going to play, and it's just nothing could be further from the truth when you're taking 18-year-old kids that you don't know what you're going to get. So they can't miss on the top one this year, and then after that, you hope. It's really how it works. It's top 10, you can't miss on, and then you hope after that.
And where they are right now, really good chance they're drafting in the top 5, based on
Yeah, hopefully the ping pong balls go their way. They if they can lose today or Tuesday night, they're automatically top 5. So that's top 5 in the lottery. Of course, you could get bumped around in that situation, and then. I've started to kind of ask around, what's the deal? Because, again, that's the other thing, too, right? Everyone acts like they're draft experts. But unless you're actually in these rinks, 50 times a year. You don't just read an article and be like, oh, this is the guy the Bruins need to get. It's so much.
You can't just watch 5 minutes of highlights.
Yeah,
on
don't
YouTube.
listen to Bob McKenzie 1 for 2 minute highlight and then be like, oh yeah, that's the guy. But sniffing around a little bit, because this is what we're going to do in the next couple months, is there's 8 top 10 picks. It's not really deep in the top of the draft, but the second and third rounder is going to produce a bunch of good players out of that. So it's not deep up top. It's a little bit deeper as you get into the 50 to 100 picks. There's a lot of good players in that area considering. But basically don't fall out of the top 8. Then it's going to get difficult. Then you're taking more of a flyer. And then also the top 10 list, there's probably 1 or 2 kids that could come out of the outside of the top 10 that NHL teams think are real top 10s that no one's really getting. So, though, if they get in the top 5, there's no issues. They'll have many players to choose from.
Which means you're rooting for the Bruins, to lose today, this afternoon, against the Penguins, and their final game of the season, their final home game against New Jersey. And you're also rooting
no, you want them to win at home. If they lose today, then they're automatic. The Phillies got to lose out, I guess, regulation.
Yeah,
they'll get
big
1
wins,
point.
Seattle.
Big wins yesterday by Philly and Seattle.
Correct.
That really helped you.
It's a huge deal. So, yeah, win at home in the last game. You're handing the jersey out afterwards. Everyone have fun there Tuesday night.
Yeah, and, the other – so why it's important to be top 5 or maybe top 6 is if you're the Bruins and you're so focused on the center position, and I do want to say, there's some risk in just drafting positional need. If you think someone is the clear best player on the board and they're not a center, you can and probably should still take that player.
Yes.
Now, the top of this draft is pretty center heavy, so it's a good draft for the Bruins specifically to be in the top 5. Matthew Schaefer is the consensus number 1 pick. He's a defenseman. After that, you could argue the next 4 are centers. Certainly 4 of the next 5. Michael Meese is the number 2. He's a center. And then the other names that you're going to want to know, that people should know, James Hagens, who played at BC, who came into the season as probably the number 1 and slipped a little. How far he ultimately slipped, I guess we'll find out at the draft. But most people still have him ranked top 5. Anton Frundell, who's playing in Sweden, in the second pro league, so he's already playing against pros. As an under-18 player in the, I'm going to take my shot here, Allsvenskan.
Hockey Allsvenskan.
Allsvenskan, okay.
Yeah, pretty good.
It was close enough.
Set the scoring record for an under-18 player. You know who's second and third on that list?
Willie Nylander and David Pastrnak.
Yes. So there's your stat to latch onto if you want Anton Frundell. Now, Frundell is more physically mature than both of those guys were at that age, so that's a factor. And then Caleb Denoyer out of Quebec Major Juniors, playing for Moncton, the top team up there. He's been the best player on the best team. By all accounts, really good two-way center. Maybe not as much obvious offensive skill as Frundell and Hagens, but perhaps the more polished all-around game. So those are the guys you're looking at. If you're top 5, you can get one of them. If you think those are the top 5 guys, you get a center who at least has a chance to be a number 1 center. Of that kind of second tier, those 3 guys, Denoyer, Hagens, Frundell, none of them are going to be a lock to be a legit number 1 center in the NHL, but they all have a chance. And that's right now, if you're the Bruins, hey, that's as good as anything. That's your best opportunity right now to find a number 1 center.
Well, and what the big, and again, just to go back to everyone in these rankings and the prospects that the Bruins have, et cetera, as soon as they get one of those guys, their prospect number goes up to 15 automatically, right? It goes from 32 to 15 instantly because you have one of these kind of players. And that just kind of goes to those rankings that are a little bit silly at times. But there's no question they have, again, they get a guy here that will be an NHLer. No matter what, they're getting an NHLer here. For the first time, you can write it in stone, they're getting an NHLer in this draft. And that's the positive at this point.
Yeah, and they're drafting in every round this year. So they have a first rounder, which is mainly what we've been talking about. They also have 2 second-round picks, and then they have one in each of the following rounds. So they have plenty of different swings to take in the middle rounds and with those picks as well. But obviously the main focus that us and everyone else that's a Bruins fan is going to be talking about from here on out until the draft is going to be those top guys.
Yeah, and not their own second-round pick, it's worth noting. So they're not picking at the top of the second round. Those two
they have
picks
Carolina and St. Louis's second-round picks.
Yeah, so those are going to be later, second half of the second round. All right, I do see calls that we want to get to, that there's text.
I want to talk to Maria.
You can weigh in, 617-779-7937. We do have to catch a break here, though, but we will be right back. Welcome back to Sunday Skate. We're talking a little bit about draft prospects last segment. A couple guys coming out of the OHL. We would be remiss if we didn't mention that someone in this room had a son drafted into the OHL yesterday.
It was me.
Yes, that's right. Mace Man. Yeah.
Congrats to Razor and Mason.
Congrats to him, yes. He's fired up, so it was great to be able to go to be in the mix for the OHL route now with all the new rules, and as a kid here, of course, that's my route, and I would have loved to have played there and then gone to college. That would have been the dream. So
did you ever consider college? Did you
I
ever
didn't
have conversations with anyone?
No, I didn't. I wasn't in the mix at all. I could go on my story, but I wasn't that great. 16, 17, I was a really late OHL pick and was small and skinny and hadn't grown really at all. So my year was kind of 16, 17, 18 when I grew, but so no colleges were in the mix at that point. So Mace it's great. He's excited. He'll be able to go to camp, get some experience, and see where he's at in 18 months.
Do I recall that you said that you didn't want your kids to be goalies, and then?
Oh yeah, I didn't let him play goalie at all. He didn't start until he was 10, maybe 11, and yeah, certainly he was not a club hockey kid. I was trying to make him be a soccer player, and I failed miraculously at that.
He had the genetics. He was like, I was born a goalie, man.
Yeah, he literally did it completely on his own, and again, I shot pucks at his head. I did everything as hard. I did not want him to do it. This is going to suck. I told him how bad it was going to be, not one positive thing, and he has persevered through all of that, of a terrible parenting of my own. So again, I did have to flip. It was getting to a point where I was being a bad dad. I looked myself in the mirror like, you're actually being a bad dad by not being supportive of this. So I had to flip. So
does he have a similar style as you?
Oh, well, he would say absolutely not. He thinks I sucked. He watches the videos like, this is embarrassing. So not. He is. It's fun. It is a weird thing, like how it is natural for him. Like he has a natural. He has natural ability, has natural stance. He looks the part. So we'll see where it goes. If I just want him to go to school and be smart. So we'll see.
So it does, because we were talking about, now that you can go to the CHL and then go to college. We had a text, a long one from the 219, asking, are we going to see teams draft top players out of the CHL and maybe direct them towards college? Or will some of these players choose college on their own? Because we hear rumors. So far, there hasn't been like that. Mac and Celebrini was a different situation. Mac and Celebrini had picked the college route before, at a much younger age, because this wasn't an option when he was going through it.
Yeah.
But now, you hear, there was a rumor about Michael Misa earlier this year playing college next season. Now people think he might just be able to jump straight to the NHL. But you even hear, Gavin McKenna a year out. Would he go to college? He's going to be the number 1 overall pick next year. The texter was asking about, Roger McQueen or Porter Martin, these guys who might go, 4, 5, 6, 8, whatever. Our NHL team's going to try to direct some of these guys to the college route, because it's an older game. It's bigger, more physically mature opponents. It is a step up in a lot of ways.
It's going to be fascinating. everyone's asking those kind of questions right now. The landscape is changing by the minute.
Yeah.
Yep.
And no one has a handle on it. That's for sure. So if anyone says, "Oh, this is what everyone," that is not true, because no one knows what any of this means or matter. Like, it is the Wild West. But the answer is yes. The answer is there's no question the NHL teams are starting to partake in the portal themselves, whether it's having a kid from juniors come to college, or whether it's, hey, you probably should move your kid from one college to another college. Those conversations are having, which is absolutely mind-blowing to think that that's where we're at in the game. But the genie's out of the bottle, and college sports is pro sports. And
it's like basically everyone's on a 1-year deal.
100%.
And sometimes not even that. Sometimes guys move mid-season.
Month to month.
Yeah.
It is full-on chaos. And as bad as it is in football and basketball, hockey's getting there. And what I think will happen, because again, even for a lot of kids to go from as a 17-year-old turning 18 to go to college is probably pretty young still. Socially, there, of course, there's a Macklin Celebrini out there. There's a Jack Eichel out there for everybody. But I think typically it's more that 19-year-old year that's going to be interesting to see what they do. And certainly you're going to see a bunch of 20-year-old kids instead of going to the AHL. Like Matt Patra is going to go to BC rather than go to the AHL. And Fabian Lysell will go to junior. As a Swedish kid, he was out in BC, then he'll come and he'll play at BU for the year and then go, rather than playing in pro. So I can see the real issue being the AHL getting stunted a little bit with the 20-year-old, 21-year-olds that end up going to college instead. I think the idea of if I was a parent, I wouldn't have my kid leave junior after his first year of junior. As an 18-year-old, like getting drafted and going back to junior is a good thing where you really dominate. And then if you do that and you get your 150 points at junior, then you can look to jump to college. But teams are going to have development the ideas, and they're going to want players to go to certain coaches in college. It's a whole big mess.
Yeah, well, I'm all for, and this is biased 100% on my point because I broadcast so many college hockey games. I just want to see the best players. Just send them through college, send them through Hockey East specifically, or at least New England. And I just always want to get a look at these guys. And it brings so much more interest to the college game, to what coaches and players are doing in college, to our broadcasts. Like, I'm completely biased. I want the best players to come through, and I want to be able to broadcast their games.
Yeah, and there's going to be, it's almost double tiered. Like, there will be more top players coming through college, because guys who previously were just locked into staying in the CHL, who get drafted top 10, like, they might go. But then, to Ray's point, there's also going to be more of the 20-year-olds who are now done in the CHL and now have NCAA as an option that wasn't there before. So, there's how college hockey changes is going to be fascinating. We know these local teams are going to be right at the front of it, because BU and BC are going to be in on all the top guys, and every other Hockey East team is going to be looking for those 20-year-old kids. Like, I saw a stat from Brad Schlossman, who covers North Dakota hockey, after the national championship last night, that like the college teams that are loaded with these first-round picks aren't winning national titles. Only one of the last 10 has had more than one first-round pick on it, and that was North Dakota the year that they won. So, BU gets there, but they didn't win. BC got there last year, but they didn't win.
BU and BC, certainly the last 2 seasons, you notice it.
Well, and before that, it was Michigan when they had 15 first-rounders, and they got beat by Minnesota State.
Yeah, that was that team that Johnny Peter was on.
Yeah, right? And Owen Power and all
Minnesota
those guys.
losing to Quinnipiac in the national championship.
Yeah,
same thing.
Right.
Yeah,
Matty Nice.
Yeah, so we do have to catch another break. Maria, we're going to lead off next hour with you, so stay on the line. You can join us, 617-779-7937. We'll be right back with Hour 2 of Sunday Skate. Welcome back to Sunday Skate.
What is this?
This is Vampire Weekend, who is probably my favorite band going right now.
It sounded like Irish music. Yes, it did.
That did not sound Irish.
Absolutely.
No. It sounded like the best live band in the land right now.
Okay.
That's what it sounded
All
like.
right.
All right, Hour 2 of Sunday Skate. I'm Scott McLaughlin. That's Bridget Prue criticizing my music choices. Andrew
Every
Razor
week.
Raycroft. As promised, let's go right to the phones into Maria from Watertown. Good morning, Maria.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you all for your time and your insight. I'm a little disappointed this is the last Sunday Skate, but the season is what it is. What I wanted to ask you is, with the playoffs just around the corner, what matchups are you all the most interested in watching? Because I think I'm going to be glued to Ottawa, Toronto, if that matchup does come to fruition. So I'm just curious what your faves may be.
Thanks, Maria. Yeah, I mean, that's a good one. My eyes immediately go to the Florida battle. Tampa Bay Lightning, Florida Panthers, first round. Assuming that holds, which it looks like it's going to at this point. Still an outside chance that the Lightning, pass Toronto, but most likely it's the Leafs as the 1 seed in the Atlantic Division, and then Lightning, Panthers in that 2-3. So those teams have had some great battles in the playoffs recently. I would expect the same once again. Like those are two teams with legit cup aspirations meeting in the first round, which is its own topic we could get into. Although I think those teams would end up matched up even if we went 1-8 this year. That they would be the 4-5 seeds. So it actually wouldn't change, but that should be a terrific first round matchup.
Yeah, the 1-8. The difference is, though, right, is that, and just to, because I argue the 1-8 all the time. It should be 1-8.
Yes,
It's ridiculous
I
that we're not doing it. Carolina's got 99 points. Tampa and Florida have 98. So that probably would change, or you would at least have something to play for to try and get out of that 4 spot. You would be working to get to that 3 spot and jump Carolina, but they're not because they're locked in against each other. It again, the bracket thing stinks. It's not the way it should be, but that's what we do. I love the Florida matchup. I love Vasilevsky. I love Bobrovsky. I'll watch every single minute of that. But the other one's Dallas, Colorado.
Yeah.
I mean, that's again, those 2-2-3 matchups, Dallas, Colorado, Tampa, Florida. You could give me one of those teams to win the Stanley Cup, and I'd feel pretty good about them doing so. And the reality is 2 of those 4 teams are going to be in the same place the Boston Bruins are in about 10 days. So that's the harsh reality of the playoffs.
Is there any, prediction from you guys? This is our last show. Do you guys have any sense of who you think could be in the final from each side?
Oh, I got nothing on the finals. I have no feel. Again, things have to kind of fall a certain way. I am not like a team that I think is going to end up in a pretty good position at the end of this is the Carolina Hurricanes. I don't believe it in Washington. I think this has Montreal Canadiens written all over it. And I'm not saying it as a hot take. I'm just saying it. You look at the Capitals, the first time they've done this with a young group. They went on a great run. They had all this energy for Ovi. And now what? Can they reset? Can they come back and flip it around? I think Carolina's got a great draw. I think even if Washington does beat Montreal, I think they're much better. They're better playoff ready than Washington. I think Carolina's got a great spot.
Carolina seemingly has the easiest first round draw with New Jersey, who is really just limping to the finish line. I mean, we saw the Bruins beat them this past week, but and
they play them again the last game of the season.
Yeah, that's just an extremely banged up team with no Jack Hughes, no Dougie Hamilton. So, now that said, watch New Jersey go out and upset Carolina in the first round.
Yeah.
Because that's just how hockey goes sometimes.
Is Svechnikov back?
Yeah, I don't know if he's played yet, but he is expected back for the playoffs. The Dallas, Colorado, again, another great one. And like you said, Ray, is 2 teams with legit cup hopes. As far as cup predictions, I said after the deadline that I know I said it on the Skate podcast. I don't know if I said it on here. Tampa over Winnipeg was my prediction coming out of the deadline. I liked what both of those teams were already doing, and then I liked what they did at the deadline with. I find, and this is informed by like recent seasons, I like the teams that add the right kind of role players at the deadline. Generally, those teams that take the big swings that quote unquote win the deadline don't win it all. And so, like, that made me skeptical of Florida, of Dallas, of Vegas last year, which paid off. Obviously, we know the Bruins 2 years ago made these big moves at the deadline and then get knocked out in the first round. So I'll stick with my Tampa over Winnipeg prediction. That still feels pretty good. Like, those are two teams that are still playing well, but it feels pretty wide open, though. Like, I think in each conference there's 4 teams that I could see winning it all. Like, that's, usually it feels like you're maybe down to like 1 or 2 that you at least consider the clear favorites heading into the playoffs. And I don't really feel that way because, like, obviously Florida has the playoff pedigree and they're the defending champs, but they haven't been playing great down the stretch. They're still waiting for guys to come back from injury. Matthew Tkachuk, obviously, chief among them. Ekblad is still suspended through the first 2 games of the first round. In a series against the Lightning, like, that matters. Like, Ekblad missing those 2 games might help decide that series. So, I don't know. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if the Panthers go on another run and go back-to-back. Also, wouldn't surprise me if they just lose to Tampa in the first round.
Well, Bruins fans are kind of rooting for Florida. I mean, that second-round
2028 pick?
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, it turns into a first-round pick. It maybe makes you feel a little bit better about Marchand, and what they got back. But that's still a hard one. I don't know. Maybe some Bruins fans are rooting for Florida because they want Brad Marchand to win, and they want to see him succeed there. Or maybe they just remember that they hate Florida, and it's going to stay like that.
Let's go to Joe in Ohio here, who has an interesting trade idea. What's up, Joe?
How you guys doing today?
Good.
Great show as usual.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm already doing my building the Bruins for next season. I've been doing a lot of research and a lot of thinking, and I'm actually kind of excited about what they can do now that they have capital and cap space. I was thinking of the idea of trading or trying to for a guy like Matty Beniers. Now, hear me out on this. He had a really good season his first year in Seattle. The last 2 have been less than stellar, and the Bruins have the wherewithal to make a deal like that now. And I think I would be in favor of going for something like that. And maybe Matt Patra would go back the other way, plus other things, of course. I'm worried about his size, and I'm also worried about Lysel's size. And Bernier is like 6'2" center, which is something they need dearly. So I wanted you guys to comment on that. And I also have a question for Razor. As far as the backup goaltender goes, is he happy with keeping Korpisalo for next year, or do you think it's time to give maybe DiPietro a shot and trade Korpisalo for more cap space? Anyway, you guys have a good off season. I'll talk to you again next year.
All right. Thanks a lot, Joe.
Thank you.
Razor, you want to start with Korpisalo first?
Yeah, Korpisalo will stay here for now. Unless you got a high draft pick or you need to put him in a deal like he was put in the deal last year. Like, unless you need to do something like that to make a bigger deal happen, I think they're very happy with Korpisalo. His cap hit's relatively short money now for what goalie backups are getting, and you need to have him, and you can still sign DiPietro to that third goalie contract that they signed Bussy to a year and a half ago, and make him that new guy if you wanted to keep him in the organization. But no, Korpisalo should be the backup next year.
And then to the Matty Beniers trade situation that he brought up first, I'm assuming that part of the reason why Beniers comes to mind, not just because he's a center and he's a little bit bigger, like he said, 6'2", 181, 22 years old. He's also a hang-a-mask guy, so he's a guy that we've talked about before because of him being a local kid. 2021 second overall pick to Seattle. What would it take to get him?
I don't even know. Like, if there was any chance of Seattle making him available, I'd be it would obviously take a lot, because I think Joe is right that his last. So if we just go through the raw numbers, his rookie season 2022-23, he had 57 points. That's really good. Like, that's what you're expecting a second-round pick to put up when he steps in. Then last year, it drops down to 37 points in 77 games. This year, 42 points with 1 game to go. So, yeah, like, there has been a drop-off. So he's signed through 2031 at $7.1 million a year. So I guess if there was any reason at all that Seattle would even consider trading him, maybe they think he's hit some sort of ceiling, or he's not going to be worth that going forward or something. I don't know. I don't really think that's happened, because Beniers is also he's a good two-way player. Like, he plays NHL defense, so there's a nice floor there, even if the points aren't what the Kraken would hope they are.
Do you trade your 5th overall pick for it?
No. I'd take my chances on the 5th overall pick. Like, it's possible that whoever you draft in the top 5, like, maybe Beniers is their ceiling, but I'll take my chances that maybe they turn out to be something more.
Because that's probably what it takes, realistically. And even the fact that Seattle's going to have the 6th overall pick, they might not even want the 5th overall pick in that situation.
Right. They might feel like there's one guy we like, and so why would we need 2?
That's right. Exactly. So it's kind of cool. Again, I'm the fantasy football draft I'm not a fan of, but we're going to be doing this. I got to lean into it a little bit.
Yeah, we haven't been in this situation in a while.
I mean, there's nobody in the roster that you would trade for Matty Beniers. That's the issue.
Right. Like, Joe mentioned Poitras, but, like, it's Poitras plus. Like,
Poitras
there's
plus
much more.
500. No one, like, I listen, I hope Matty makes it, but there's not a buzz around Matty Poitras around the league. I mean, no one's sure of what he is right now. He's got a long way to go, and you're not. It's not. Let's be realistic if we're going to do this. So that's, basically it's, it'd be tough to get him, because I don't think unless they wanted Hampus Lindholm or something like that.
One last tangential point here on Beniers. So when we look at James Higgins, who's one of the potential targets for the Bruins in the top 5 if they're picking their center, freshman at BC this year, point per game player as an 18-year-old freshman at BC, which is really good. The reason that he slipped from being like number 1 overall pick to 3, 4, 5 is basically that he didn't produce like Macklin Celebrini or Adam Fantilli, who at the same age as freshmen in college, actually Celebrini was like 6 months younger, were up over 1.5 per game. Like, just much more production. Well, a comp for Higgins at that age would be Matty Beniers, who was a point per game as a freshman at Michigan. So if you're looking at like, okay, what is a point per game freshman, top 5, like what does that project to in the NHL? Well, it might be Beniers. Now, again, every player's development is different, so I'm not saying Higgins might be worse than Beniers. He might be better, but that's kind of a model of like, well, what kind of player are we looking at? Like, there's an example of what the college production led to in the NHL, which seems fair. Like that's a step down from Celebrini, certainly, and it's even a step down from Fantilli, and that's what you might get with Higgins. So like, just be realistic about that. Okay, we got to catch a break here. Again, you can join us, 617-779-7937.
I do have some goalie questions for Razor.
Yes.
Not as many as last week. Did
Okay.
get some tweets at me, and I had some myself, so we can do that next.
All right, we will do goalie questions with Razor next. David Azer has your trending, and then we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Sunday's Skate. I'm Bridget Prue here with Andrew Razor Raycroft and Scott McLaughlin. It is time for goalie questions with Razor. And I have a few, and I want to start with the Bruins related questions. We also got some in the text line, Twitter, that we'll get to as well. But I want to keep the first two to about Jeremy Swayman, seeing as this is our last show. Unfortunately, next week is Easter, so we won't be on then, and the Bruins are not making the playoffs. So normally we go a little bit longer. It is unfortunate. But this is our last opportunity to ask you about Swayman's season and what you've thought of him. So I just want to start out by saying, if you could give Swayman a grade for this season, what would it be?
Oof. I mean, you can't. I mean, the reality is it can't be better than a C, can it? I don't think. I mean, that's. I guess it depends on the curve and where you're grading and what parts you're taking as positives, etc. Listen, I think the season wasn't good enough. So you start there, and then here's my but, and that is this. I've said it for 9 months now, and this is probably the last time I'm going to say it, maybe one more time on Brew in the next couple of days, but this was always going to be an extremely difficult season for Jeremy Swayman. Not for 1 second did I think this guy was going to win the Vezina Trophy in this season. I did not.
That was one of my bold predictions.
That was him.
That he was going to win the Vezina?
Yep.
Oh, you did? Okay. No, so and
it was admittedly going way out on a limb, obviously, but that's what bold predictions are.
Yeah,
that's
and the reason was just because he'd never done this before. It just wasn't. Everything got thrown off, and even if he had signed a contract on September 15th, it was he wasn't in a rotation. He didn't. Linus Ullmark was no longer here. There was a new relationship in goal. There's expectations are completely different. He hasn't played 55 games in pro hockey ever in his life. All of these things just it was building to not be a good year, kind of no matter what. Most guys just wouldn't have put this together, and he didn't. Now, what I have been happy about is his battle to the end. Again, we saw a lot of the reasons why they felt comfortable giving him an 8-year deal, because he does battle, he does work, he does care, he does compete. He's just going to have a reset, and he needs to take the positives from it. He needs to really, really dig into the negatives. I know he's a positive guy and he talks positively all the time, but he has to have a real look at the negatives this season and change those negatives. And I think he's going to do all of that. I think he's got people around him that are going to explain to him, kind of what he needs to do better and how he needs to relook at things. And I think he's better for it. Next year is the exact opposite. The expectations are lower. All the things I just explained it's a 180 for next season. Next season, I can see him going on a run and being very good.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I'm going to ask to try to get into his head a little bit, but you're right. Like, he does project positivity. We even heard it after Thursday night. You lose to the second worst team in the NHL, and he says, "Oh, that there's positives to build on and take away from this game." And like that, it worries me in the sense because it's like I don't know if that's what he actually believes or if he's just projecting that. But do we think he internal? You mentioned like look at the negatives and like make sure you turn those around. Do we think like his mindset is like, I know I wasn't nearly good enough and I need to be much better and like I'm going to be realistic about this? Or does that positivity that he gives us in the media, like, does he actually feel that? Like, does he actually feel like this season wasn't as bad as the numbers would say and that maybe it's just a couple small things and and it doesn't need to be some like big shakeup? So
you have to go by actions, right? You can't go by whatever's being said, and so I do that, and I've watched them, and again, it's the first on the ice. I didn't see him skate through practice at all. Anytime I was over there, he grinded, he worked, he stayed after, he did his routine before, he stayed focused on routine. So I think he tried to work through it. So that's where I'm going to go in that. I don't think he does say those things. I wish he would lose his mind. I like it when guys are very honest in both ways. But I do also understand coaching in the media and mental coaches and projecting and manifesting and all these random words that shouldn't be in pro sports, for my opinion. But I'm not going to be that old guy who doesn't acknowledge it. So I think there's a lot of that going on with words. But again, action-wise, I saw him be frustrated. I saw him be upset. I saw him work hard in practice, understand in practice I have to show up because I'm not playing well. All those little things that are kind of nuanced, I recognize that. Again, there's a long way to go, but I think there's no chance, again, getting into his head. I can't do that, but from my point of view, I don't think that he in any way whatsoever he's satisfied, and in any way whatsoever he's I think he's surprised at how bad a season was, and understands that he needs to change that.
Yeah, certainly the comments are almost always positive. There's not been a whole lot of, this went poorly. Like, it's always looking ahead. It's kind of how he always goes about it. It's always looking ahead, not backwards, which obviously a lot of goaltenders will say that that's, part of being able to not find yourself in a stretch where you just are losing confidence and you just the ability to put things behind you. I think it's part of his personality to look forward. Seems like a positive guy in all of our interactions. So maybe that is just how he thinks and how it goes about his life, and maybe it works for him. So for him, next season, obviously, going to need to be a bounce back. Wasn't perfect. My follow-up question about Swayman to you, Razor, is what's the single biggest thing that Swayman has to get better at next season to not have this happen?
Well, I think, I mean,
not even necessarily get better at, I guess maybe just change in general. What's something that,
yeah, well, no, I think I just and Anna, on the ice thing, I think he needs to get better at playing the puck. I think that's a simple one. The D handoffs were bad at times this year, like flat out bad. If you're going to play every night, I think you have to release the pressure. Linus was better at it than him, and I think there were times where he kind of carried the mail on the every other night of playing the puck and moving it and having good handoffs. So that's the one big thing, like, on the ice for me. I think that's easily can be fixed, and you can work on that all summer and you can get better at. So that's one for me. Beyond that, a lot of it is mentality, and a lot of it is just getting comfortable and getting in a routine. And because what'll happen is you start holding your feet a little bit longer. Right now, he's going down early. He doesn't have a lot of confidence, and you can see that with those high shots going over his shoulder. But a lot of that's coming from confidence and mental, not physical stuff.
I was gonna say, like, when you asked that question, where my mind went, just because it's something that has stood out, I think, especially recently, is how often he's gotten beat by shots off the rush.
Yeah,
which just feels like, I wish I had analytics on it, but it feels to me like it's a higher percentage than it should be.
Yeah.
Is that the going down too early, or is there something else there?
No, that's kind of what I referenced. And I think I know what also happens is when you don't really trust what's going on in front of you, right? It's chaos out there.
You don't trust they're going to take away the pass.
Correct. Or you don't really know where the shot's coming from. You have younger D in front of you, or it's the fifth rush rather than just the second rush of the night that you've been giving up. But certainly those goals weren't going in against Florida last year in the playoffs. He wasn't getting beat with a shot. That was crazy to think, and now it's happening 2 or 3 times a game. Like the one low blocker against Chicago the other night, it's like, that was never, he was never getting beat with that. But I think, again, that goes back to yes, not really reading the shot. I think he's thinking too much and not just reacting to the play. But that also comes into play when you have a bunch of defensemen that you don't, really know well.
I have another question for Razor. It is not about goaltending. It comes from one Brian Zachello, who you work with at Nesson. Z has tweeted in, ask Razor how he's doing in our Masters pool.
Why, Corey Connors is going to win, so I'm going to take all the money. So it's real funny because Z picked my team. I wasn't able to go. Of course, he made the Masters pool the day that I couldn't go. So he picked my pool that was literally the last pick in the draft, too. So I wasn't there, so I didn't even I got literally the last pick in the draft, and he picked. So it's completely rigged against me because I won last year. So that's how my draft's going.
Who wins today?
Rory's got to win, doesn't he? He's got to win.
The drama is so incredible.
It's gonna literally be the best day of my golfing life. It's as good as Tiger Woods for me being in this. And
DeChambeau just sinking that long putt on 18 to pull within 2 yesterday.
Just a game changer.
It's like, it puts the pressure on so much more.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch how these guys come out. But yeah, if Rory doesn't get it now, it's the man. Oh man, he's gonna have a long summer answering questions to everybody. He's gonna need that positivity. He's gonna need the manifesting mumbo jumbo.
So we got another text in about Swayman, and kind of in his defense, though we do have plenty of texts that are not defending Swayman at all. But this one says Swayman needs help from the defense and the offense next year, actually defending, clearing pucks out, and shooting and scoring. You can't win with 10 shots. So basically, pucks on his end of the ice a lot. The Bruins aren't generating enough offense. What do you say to that?
Yeah, they're a terrible team. I mean, I don't know. They don't have enough good players. So,
well, this brings up something interesting from Sweeney on the NESN broadcast on Thursday, where I know you guys were listening too. Like, how many times did he mention guys being shot ready? And just being ready to shoot more.
And how disappointed he was that guys like Elias Lindholm came into the season and weren't. And he named Pavel Zacha as well. And
Casey Middlestad.
Yep.
But so which leads me to, okay, well, who got the players who aren't shot first guys? Like, there's a bit of you can't teach an old dog new tricks type thing too, where if you want shot ready players, go out and get guys who shoot. Like, I'm sorry, but Pavel Zacha hasn't been a shooter in his career. Casey Middlestad's not a shooter. So I understand the frustration, and Sweeney sitting there watching them pass out of chances literally while he's sitting there in the booth, because we all see it. We've all seen them overpass. Okay, but look at the players you have. You don't have a lot of shooters. So I would say you got to look in the mirror a little bit on that one in terms of the kind of players you've put on this roster. And I would also say that's why you need to go out and get shooters, plural, this summer. So, look, Mitch Marner's the best player available in free agency. And I would absolutely take Mitch Marner because he can drive a line by himself. And even though it would be odd to build your offense through two right wings, at least you would have two players on your top two lines who are stars who can drive play. But it might very well be smarter for this team to just prioritize, say, Nick Ehlers, who by the way, is hurt right now. So that
was bad, huh? Last night with the referee.
Yeah, just
holy
runs into a ref.
And he did not look good. I mean, you don't know, but he does not look like he's playing Saturday night. That would be such a typical Winnipeg Jet issue.
Yeah. But it may very well be smarter for this team to target Ehlers, and then maybe there's someone else who's a shooter. But again, if you want shooters and finishers, you got to go out and get guys who do that. You can't bring in pass first guys and then get upset when they don't shoot enough.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, Razor, we don't have more goalie questions, but I want to ask you about the offseason. Who do you want them to go out and get?
Oh, man.
Would you prioritize Marner? Would you be in on that?
I don't know.
It seems like that's a lot of people. It's there's not a lot of people who are excited.
I would have been on February 5th, and now I'm not. Now I don't know if that's what they need. I don't know if they're in that position, and not only because they got rid of the four guys at the deadline, but also because Geekie and Pasta have worked, and now you see Lindholm there now. That's what I'm gonna base my next season on. Those three guys together, just because you need to play Lindholm somewhere. And it's worked. It has worked, and Geekie and he can be the valve, and that moves Zach into the wing. So that means one less winger that you need to get, especially if you're kind of banking on a Minton or one of these young guys to take the third line center spot. So it seems to balance the roster. It seems to balance the needs. if you move Zacha to the wing, because you essentially have double coverage with Lindholm and Zacha at this point. Kind of the players they are. Zacha's a little bigger, but it seems like they're the 200-foot centermen that are allowing Geekie and Pasta to do their thing. So, okay, move Lindholm to the wing, move Zacha to the wing with Middlestat. Does Marner fit there? With
It's a very pass-happy line. Again,
that's the issue.
Mitch Marner's good enough that, look, if you put him on that line's better than anyone else you could put there.
100%.
Because he drives play.
Correct.
He leads a line. But, realistically, that line would be frustrating to watch at times because all three of those guys will pass out of chances.
And you need to have someone on a line with Mitch Marner that's more of the dynamic
yes.
that he's been in the past, where there's a finisher, there's a clear, he's a good setup guy. You got to have a good finisher with him, which we've gone over why he doesn't necessarily perfectly fit into a Bruins roster because he's in the same spot as Pasternak. So he'd be on the second line, and they'd be split up except for probably on the power play.
Right, which you can do. I mean, Toronto has Mitch Marner and William Nylander. Those are also two of the 5 or 6 best right wings in the NHL. And, now they also happen to have Austin Matthews and John Tavares as their centers, which you don't have. So, I don't know. In a perfect world, Mitch Marner's not the guy I'm giving that kind of contract to, but you're not in a perfect world right now. You're in a world where you just need elite talent. You need someone other than David Pasternak who can drive offense for you, because right now it's a one-man show. And, we all like Morgan Geekie and what he's done this year, but Morgan Geekie's not producing like this if he's not playing with Pasternak. So I would be in on Marner until the price gets too crazy. But they got to have backup plans for sure. If they're even in on Marner at all. Like I said, they might just decide, hey, Ehlers is our guy, or maybe Brock Besser, but I gotta say, I don't love the idea of getting Brock Besser. I don't really like him as a player. I think he disappears way too often.
No, let's not do the Vancouver thing again.
Yeah,
that hasn't worked.
The whole swap for both of those teams did not work.
Jake DeBrusk is exactly what Jake DeBrusk is. Yeah. He was exactly as advertised. Quite honestly, the Vancouver team got exactly what their guys are. Forbert, from all accounts, actually had a good season. He's going to actually get a good contract this summer. Derek Forbert is, just so everyone knows. He's like a sought-after defenseman right now, with the cap going up. And Jake DeBrusk is Jake DeBrusk, 25 goals. He's going to score 15 in 10 games. He's going to score 0 in the next 30 games, and then he's going to score a couple. He had that season. It's hilarious when I talk to my Vancouver people. They're like, yeah, you called it. It was exactly what you said it was going to be, and that's okay. That's what he is.
I guess because we need to take a break here real quick, what are your thoughts on what the Bruins decor will look like next year? Who are some guys maybe that need to step up? What are you expecting from them?
Well, I mean, again, they need to find Brandon Carlo now, right? They have Lindholm and McAvoy are just it's going to be so refreshing to see those guys on the ice. That we have learned very quickly here in the last month and a half, and I would suggest we've learned what Hampus Lindholm means. Of course, there was criticism of him at times. I don't think there'll be too much of that after we saw what happened without him in the lineup since November. And forget what he did in Game 7 against the Leafs last season and all those the things he can add to. So that's that instantly makes things different. Zadorov, I think he won't lead the league in penalties next season. I think there's going to be a mandate there. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I think he'll work next year. Lohrei's the big one. I mean, what are we doing with him?
I want to save that for after the break. That might be a good place to wrap up because I definitely have thoughts on Lohrei as well. There are some texts I want to run through as well. So we will be back for the final segment of Sunday Skate this season coming up next. Welcome back to Sunday Skate. Scott McLaughlin, Andrew Razor Raycroft, and Bridget Prue. David Azer behind the glass. So we wrapped up last segment just starting to touch on Mason Lohrei. because we're talking about what the Bruins need to have be better on defense. And I think Razor covered the rest of the D-core well. Lohrei's fascinating, right? Because he's your most talented young defenseman. He's the guy that you've brought up through your system who looks like he can be part of your future. But there's certainly offensively, we see it. But clearly has work to do defensively. People latch on to minus 43, worst plus minus in the NHL. I'll give my quick disclaimer that plus minus is a flawed stat because it's not just 5-on-5. There's shorthanded goals and empty net goals and all that. But even 5-on-5, the numbers aren't very good. Minus 21 at 5-on-5, fifth worst among all NHL defensemen. He's been on the ice tied for the most goals against per 60 minutes. The Athletic does player ratings. They have offensive ratings, defensive ratings. Mason Lohrei has the worst defensive rating among NHL defensemen. So, look, is some of that the product of the team around him? Yeah. Is some of it the product of your goaltending not making enough saves? Absolutely. But he's been on the ice for 10 more goals than any other Bruin since the trade deadline.
That's my issue. Is he's minus 25 in his last 16 games. So do we care? What are we doing? That is, I just kind of talked about with Swayman and the compete and the grind, and yeah, it's a bad season, but he's played it out to the end. He's had games. He's looked in. That's the issue with a young guy being minus 25 in his last 6, being 10 goals more than everybody else since the deadline. And yeah, he's playing more, etc. But that's at some point you gotta take guys out, and that's got to bother you. And the fact that a Boston Bruin defenseman's going to lead the National Hockey League in plus minus, and I know it's a flawed stat, but that's still not acceptable. It's just not. So
we're used to it being so far in the other direction.
Correct.
Where, Carlo, Chara, I don't know. There's been so many Bruins
Hampus
defensemen.
Lindholm 2 years ago led the league in plus
Even
minus.
Matt Grzelcyk was super high in plus minus at certain seasons. We're used to seeing heavy plus for Bruins defensemen.
Yeah, and obviously all those guys are on much better teams. But what Razor and I are getting is Lohrei's defensive numbers, whether it's your basic plus minus or more advanced analytics, they stand out even on a bad team. They've been worse than the rest of the team. So, yeah, I mean, Razor, is it just compete? Is it just he needs to want to win battles more? Is there a technique thing? Is it coaching? What do we think gets him? Because he's never going to be a shutdown defenseman. We know that.
Nope.
But you got to stay above water, right? Your defense has to be good enough that the offense then pushes you into being a net positive player, and then you go up from there. But where does it start?
He's not. Yeah, that's the narrative isn't. Oh, he's got to become a shutdown. That's never going to happen. We're all very aware of that. But he's 6'4", 210 pounds. And of course, he's going to 10 pounds of muscle. We're going to hear that whole thing next summer for sure. I guarantee you, first day of training camp, Mason Lohrei put on 10. We hear that every summer. It's a second effort. It's a compete league. We hear about David Pastrnak for sure, but Brad Marchand, Patrice, all these guys, the compete level, the second effort. So it's not a physical thing. They can't be because he's 6'4", 210 pounds. Parker Wotherspoon, it could be a physical thing. He's 5'11", 180. That's different. If you're 6'4", 210, you don't have to. Again, you're not Scott Stevens, but you can be Brandon Carlo and close out and be hard to play against in different ways. So it's the talk about reset. This guy's got the biggest one. He's got to figure out what he's going to be because it's been unacceptable.
Yeah, certainly a lot of growth left for him in his career.
Well, that does it for this season of Sunday Skate. Only 2 Bruins games left.
Yep. Yeah, it's
closing time.
It is closing time.
It certainly is.
I picked this for the outro music, so thank you. It's closing time. Guys, it's been great working with you guys again.
Yes. Thank you to both of you guys. Thank you to all the listeners. There were a lot of nice text messages, some not so nice. Look, we appreciate that too. But we got Christian Arcand coming up next, which I'm very excited about. I heard last week he felt like we weren't excited enough in promoting his show.
Christian Arcand is the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
Best host on the station. Put that in his intro.
Yeah, there you go. New intro to the show. All right. Thanks for listening. Hopefully we're back next year, but until then, you can listen to me and Bridget on the Skate Podcast.
I want you to sound a little bit more positive
You
about
can
that.
listen to Razor on Morning Brew. They're still going as well. So
3 more days.
Yeah, we're not really going anywhere, but we are done with Sunday Skate.
But you can't stay here.
Can't stay here. That's right. All right. Thanks for listening.